Like you would not want to have a slow, steady, dividend-paying stock in a... There's investing mistakes that you think you can make, like, oh, buying the wrong stock or whatever. But then there's all these layers of things that we see because we watch people do it all the time. So we're going to cover a few more for you here. And would you like to go first, mister?
Well, yeah, buying something you don't understand is probably like on the top of my list. Oh, my God. Because as a planner, and we sit down and we're working with somebody and they've got this annuity, and I have yet to meet somebody that has fixed income annuities, sometimes pretty basic.
Okay.
But the variable annuities, nobody understands.
Yep.
Nobody. And personally, coming out of the insurance industry is where I started, the insurance/financial industry.
Yep.
They would say to really just, hone in and learn a couple of good ones, and that's it. Because they're so complex that not even the advisors can often have it. And they'll bring in like a person that is going to teach this to everybody. And so like they bring in somebody who's an expert in this annuity and teach you how to sell it so that then you can go out and try to sell it.
No.
And
And you have no idea what's going on. Neither does the person who's selling it to you.
Nope.
They know like 4 good touch points, right?
That's all it is. And yeah, so really you've got to just understand what you're buying, because if you don't, you get to the retirement years and then you're like, I'm not really sure.
Yep.
And it's like, well, how are we supposed to account for how much income you're going to get from this, or, whatever the plan was with this annuity. But unfortunately, when something is sold, usually the people that are selling it, once the sale is done, it's rare for that person to be around. I mean, maybe they retire, but often these guys jump jobs, or gals, they're switching jobs. I mean, look at me. I started in that side of it and I was out because I didn't like it.
Plus they say you don't buy an annuity, you're sold an annuity. Like nobody ever buys an annuity. They're sold it.
Yep.
All right. Let me go with one here. Investing mistake wrapped around owning a large, what we call a concentrated position. This happens a lot with people that work for public companies. They end up getting shares over time. They get some discounts on those shares. Maybe there's an open window where they can buy at a previous price. And you do it, and great, there's nothing wrong with that. But over time, it becomes this big blob on your portfolio, and you go, holy crap, now all of a sudden that's 60% of everything I've saved for. And you got to be careful with that. It's not a bad thing to have. It's just let's take a look at the position as it gets bigger and start strategizing on maybe how to diversify a little bit, spread that out, take some profits when you can, things like that.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I mean, textbooks 10%. That's what they say.
That's what they say.
10% in any one company. Though, around here we've got Publix is just a massive one, and it's a privately traded stock, so it's not publicly traded, and people love it. And I get for the reasons why, and
There's people that are millionaires on paper that work at Publix now.
Yeah.
But if, God forbid, just a little problem there, not that there would be. But.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you just never know. I mean, some crazy outbreak in the deli that causes, E. coli, and everybody's like, hey, I'm not going.
Fault. Yeah.
So, there's risks. And so,
cancel Publix.
You got to figure that. No, don't say that, man.
You never know. You never know.
My whole family's in the tank.
Oh, that's right.
They all work there.
Yep.
All right. So I've got another one, just making long-term investments with money that you're going to need in the next, few months. Because so many people sit there and they say, okay, I'm going to invest this money. And they just invest the money and they put it, let's just say, in the S&P 500 index. Okay. So in an index fund or something like that. And they're like, I just want to try to make a couple bucks on this real quick.
Yep.
But if you need that money in the next 3 months, 6 months, even year, you really shouldn't consider just parking all of this into the market for the sake of, if you put 10 grand in the market and the market has a 10% pullback that year, well, now you got 9 grand.
Yep.
You don't have the money you had. And so you're working against yourself. And in today's time, right this second, a high yield savings account is paying 5%, 4 or 5%, depending on where it is. And so it's like, why would you not park that money something safe if it's short-term money? And again, that's working with an advisor, figuring out, where am I pulling from first? What's the next step? And being able to talk through that a bit.
Jazzwealth.com. Actually, so the best example I have to go along with that is usually when people sell a house, they're like, I'm moving out of state, I'm doing something. It may be 6 months to a year before I buy a house. Let's put it all in something that's going well. The worst feeling one of the worst feelings in the world, other than like a teenage pregnancy or something, is when you go and you try to. It's a problem. The worst feeling is you had $200,000 in equity from selling your house. You put it in the market, and now you're ready to go buy the other house, but you've got 180.
Yeah.
All right, not a big deal, not the end of the world, but God, that hurts. You don't have to do it these days.
Yep. No, for sure.
My final one is asset location. So everybody talks about asset allocation. That's great. Nothing wrong with that at all. But take it a step further and go asset location.
Well, and real quick, just to explain asset allocation.
Allocation. Hit me
because
with
the idea is people, kind of, you hear these terms, and sometimes if you know it, you know it. But if you don't, I mean, think of a pie. And really the allocation is, if you've got all of it and let's just say like large cap growth stock, everything's located there. Well, that's great when it's going great.
Yep.
But if you look at 2022, large cap growth just got destroyed.
Yep.
And so if you have that and you're trying to stomach the ride, number one, but number two, if you're retired, you've got to be very careful on this.
Yep.
So asset allocation is really creating a pie and making sure that you have a little bit in different sectors, different spots of the industries, because
some bonds.
When
maybe.
when you're pulling out your money, you've got to figure that out. So that's kind of the allocation side. And then I'll let you jump into the location.
Asset location is the next level where you go now the individual positions themselves. As I allocate my money around in this pie, which accounts should get the positions?
Oh, yeah.
Like you would not want to have a slow, steady, dividend-paying stock in a brokerage account, right? It doesn't make any sense. You just ended up paying tax on the dividends. You would, let's say, a big shot, large cap play or some maybe penny stock or whatever you're playing. Well, that goes in the Roth, right? But best case is in the Roth because if it does have that wild growth, you don't want to pay tax on all that, right? Worst case, it goes in a brokerage account, right? And you have the capital gains there, but it doesn't go in an IRA where you take this home run of a play or long-term growth position, and now you got to pay income tax on that money as you take it out. So asset location, if an advisor ever says, your asset allocation is this, next question, what's the location of those stocks?
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Ask them.
Well, let me ask you something. Did you hear Boeing designed their own set of golf clubs? You're pretty much guaranteed to get a hole-in-one. It's pretty relevant.
I mean, that's timely. That's timely.